So you just got done watching the new Prime Video series Swarm, episode 1 titled Stung, and you want to talk spoilers? Well, you found the right channel to do so. Today we're discussing this first episode of Swarm, which is a series created by Donald Glover and Janine Nabers, and this stars Dominique Fishback, Chloe Bailey, and Damson Idris. But before we get into today's spoiler breakdown, I want to talk to you all about this series. What did you think about this opening episode from Donald Glover's direction, the story, the narrative, the performances, and will you be watching this series to the end? Let's have those conversations below. And of course, if you all enjoyed my breakdown today, consider hitting that thumbs up, sharing this video, and also subscribing to the channel. With that being said, now I've been super excited about this show ever since I heard about it, and especially who's involved. And if you all been a part of this community, you know how much I love and miss Atlanta. So this was a must watch for me, and here we are talking about it. Full spoilers ahead. As we open with the title card stating, this is not a work of fiction. Any similarities to actual persons, living or dead, or actual events is intentional, as the story takes place in Houston, Texas, April 2016. Now, as we are introduced to Andrea Green, aka Dre, we see right off the start that she is a big fan of this fictional character named Naja, who we can definitely tell has some similarities to Beyonce, and we can see that Dre has been a fan of her since she was a kid. Now you'll notice there's posters, magazine covers all over her room. She has the whole nine. She's a super fan. As we see, Dre has a brand new credit card that she opened just to buy 2 tickets for the Naja concert, which is going under the title of Evolution Tour. And those tickets cost $1,800. And not just that, they're just for the standing room for May 7th, which is a month from when this episode starts. We see her post this on Twitter as we hear these bee noises in the background, and we'll be talking about those noises here in a second. But now this is when we're introduced to our supporting characters. We have Khalid and Marissa who are dating, and we see Dre watching them having sex, and Khalid notices this as well, and immediately you start the question, is there something going on with Dre? Is she some type of weirdo watching her friend having sex? I mean, I have so many questions right off the bat with this show. And transitioning from that moment, awkward moment, into this one. Now, this scene to me, when we see Dre go to the store and the store clerk convinces her to pay for Marissa's things or she'll call the cops, I think this is showing us, this is an indicator to show that Dre is maybe someone that gets taken advantage of quite a few times in her life. As we see Marissa needs Dre to lock up her job because we see Marissa is a makeup artist. She got this last minute gig, and Dre isn't a fan of this relationship, by the way, of Khalid and Marissa. And we also notice in this moment that Dre is broke, especially after secretly paying for those tickets, and Khalid makes fun of Dre for being a good girl, followed up by him calling Dre and Marissa these fans of Naja, a cult member, and Naja is just some normal individual, which Dre's response is correcting him immediately, and he tells him she's not just everyone else, she's a goddess. And going back to that musical cue, you hear in the background,
gives it a name, she's a goddess.
To me, I think highlights these delusions that Dre has in her head about Naja. Now we see even Marissa has her limits to her fandom, as she's still a fan of Naja, but she's grown out of that obsession stage. She even calls Dre out for being so obsessed, and we see Dre is on her phone. She's on the Twitter account which they created, and it has over 400 followers, which was created when they were teens. But Marissa tells Dre that the fans on that account are just crazy ass fans and they don't care about Dre and they're not really real. But again, y'all have to remember, Dre has created his own fantasy life where if you are a fan of Naja, she's a fan of you. Now going back to this friendship here, we see that Marissa is a real one, as she knows that Dre is a weirdo, but she loves her passion. As we see, Marissa has a scar on her wrist, and we see Dre kissing his scar, which to me alludes to Marissa having harmed herself in the past, which connects to what actually happens a little bit later in this episode. Now we see this small conversation between the friends discussing the chance of ever meeting Naja, and if there's anyone that will meet her, it will be Dre, which I think is kind of foreshadowing for that inevitable meeting between Dre and Naja, but I don't think the meeting is going to be as good as Dre thinks it might be in her head. Now, yet again, we get another musical cue as Dre is running late for covering for Marissa and looks crazy as hell from top to bottom, makeup everywhere. I mean, she's looking bad on these streets, y'all, and it's like she's living in her own world. But again, I have a question. Do you all think we've gotten several musical cues with the bruh and the bees? Do you think the musical cue is just for us as the audience watching how awkward she is? Or do you think that this is in Dre's head, or is it in the head of people people around her. Let me know your thoughts on these musical cues so far in this first episode in the comments below. Now, throughout this first half of the episode, I just couldn't tell if Dre was just socially awkward or was she on the spectrum. Were you all thinking the same thing? If so, let's comment about the socially awkwardness or her potentially being on the spectrum. But we get a different side of her here in a second. Before we get to that change of the character, we have another example of Dre dislike for Khalid as he pulls up to Dre's work. You see Khalid shooting his shot with Dre as he's offering her a ride and even brings up the situation where she was watching him having sex earlier. We see Dre declines his offer, but while this was happening, Marissa's booth ends up getting robbed, which we do see inevitably. This causes her to have an fear that she might be losing her job soon. Now, Marissa clearly upset by what just happened. She is leaving the apartment and wants some space between her and Dre, and even the nausea tickets don't help out in this situation. Dre learns that Marissa is going to Atlanta to celebrate her birthday with Khalid, even though Dre had plans to go into this concert with her. We also learn that, unfortunately, Marissa wants to move out as well. Now, Dre tries her best to have this last-minute effort for her best friend not to leave because she tells her what happened with her and Khalid at the mall, but this unfortunately doesn't work. It actually works against her as we see Marissa leaving the apartment and running away and driving away from her best friend Dre. Now, in the midst of all this drama, we have Naja dropping a surprise album, just like You Know Who, as we see this how effective this music is for Dre as she turns on the album on TV and she kind of changes herself and is like touching her face. But speaking of changes, you'll notice she gains this level of confidence as we see this completely different side of Dre as she's now all dressed up to go to the club. She's even done her own makeup, which we know she hasn't done this whole entire episode so far because Marissa did her makeup. Now she manages to skip the line at the club. She sets her eyes on, I love the cameo from Rory Culkin. And also, by the way, the track they're playing and also the soundtrack in this first episode was fire. So I guess it's safe to say that Dre isn't a virgin anymore, or maybe she was never a virgin. Maybe when she gets this level of confidence, she goes out and gets some whenever she wants. As we see, she wakes up with the missed calls and messages from Marissa, who found out that Khalid was cheating on her, and after this big fight, he ended up leaving her stranded in the middle of the night. But just backtracking here for a second, do you all feel as though the music from Naja changes Dre's personality and gives her this level of confidence, or this whole shy girl thing is just an act? Let me know your thoughts on that in the comment section. It is at this point in the episode where I was really enjoying what was going on, the character stuff, the soundtrack, developing the story, but this is when the episode takes a complete 180. As we see, Dre makes it back home to find the tickets for the concert have arrived. Now, she's thinking that now after this breakup, she's going to get her best friend back. This is going to be a great pick-me-up for her friend. But unfortunately, she goes into the room and she finds Marissa has unfortunately lain on the bed. She's non-responsive and she's unconscious. Now, we learn that Marissa unfortunately overdosed and she passed away, as Dre is broken and she's just a shell of herself, as the movers are now in the house taking out all Marissa's things. We see just how numb she is as she goes to the convenience store, drops some glass. She picks up the glass and she's squeezing it in her hand, but she has no response. Now we see at this point the apartment is completely empty out, as we see Dre go onto her phone looking at all the nasty and mean comments left about Marissa and the posts that she have about her dying, as this leads her to texting Marissa's phone, and she ends up finding the phone in the closet. And I'm not gonna lie, guys, that moment there got me emotionally. Like, again, the switch in the tone and the seriousness really got to me at this point in the episode. Let me know how y'all were feeling at this point. Now we transition to seeing Dre attending the funeral, where she's dressed almost like she's going to the club again, as she learns that the family doesn't want her there and she's asked to leave. As she's outside, we see her staring at this swarm of bees as she flashes to who I believe is Naja, as she is led to paying a visit to Khalid. So I don't think it's a coincidence where she is, again, Naja, the bees, the swarm, that she gets this other switch in her personality, which again is going to lead to the most darkest moment of this episode. Talking about this intense scene, as they're making some small talk, Khalid expresses his guilt towards what happened to Marissa. Now I want y'all to pay attention to what this young man's doing in this scene, as we see him crying after the guilt and everything. But then after we see Dre kind of pats him on the back, we see Khalid going in for a kiss, but he kind of notices that Dre wasn't feeling it. And then literally 10 seconds after kind of crying, he's now kind of back to normal, as we see him just kind of carefree. He offers Dre some tea, and this is is where he's just kind of minding his business, going to the refrigerator, and we see Dre grabbing a lamp, running up behind him, and killing him. Now, Dre seems to be in shock at first. She goes into the refrigerator. She eats what I think is either a pumpkin pie or sweet potato pie. She's covered in blood, and she's eating this pie, which if she was eating sweet potato pie, maybe that's a reference to everyone in this episode calling Dre a sweet girl, which clearly she's not. Now, the switch up from Dre being cool, calm, and collected to killing him was what I call range. And I mean, that was extremely chilling, and just what a great performance. I remember reading an article about them talking about this exact shot, and when they shot it, all the crew and cast members on set gave her a round of applause, and now I see why. Now, that's what I call a great pilot episode. Donald Glover, he set the tone perfectly. This first episode did a great job of mixing in reality that we live in, of this fan culture, how people can be obsessive over celebrities and how it can become so toxic and dangerous. There's also a good amount of satire and dark humor in this show, and the performances from our supporting cast. Again, Khalid, Damson did a great job. Chloe did a great job as Marissa. I'm very curious if we'll get those characters back in some type of flashback, because they are two, well-known actors, and a well-known person with Chloe being a singer and also transitioning to acting. So I wonder if they'll make a return moving forward again in some form of flashbacks or hallucination from Dre's character. But speaking of Dre, Dominique Fishback absolutely kills it in this role, and I'm just so excited to go on this journey with this character in the next few episodes. Speaking of those next few episodes, I'm about to watch the remaining episodes right now, so keep an eye out for like a series breakdown, ending breakdown video that will most likely be uploaded on the channel as we speak. So again, this is just my thoughts on episode 1. I haven't seen the remaining episodes, which I believe there's 7 in total. So again, I love this first episode. I've spoken enough. Go ahead and share your thoughts in the comments of what you all thought about this pilot episode, from the story, the performances. Before you've seen the remaining episodes, what theories or predictions do you all have? I believe that we will see Dre maybe make it to Naja, but on her way to that journey, she's going to probably kill some other people that's not a fan of her or pisses her off. So I'm just intrigued if there's going to be any time jumps. I believe I read somewhere that we might jump between 2016 and 2018, but nevertheless, I'm excited to watch the rest of this series. Again, drop your thoughts on this first episode and keep an eye out for that ending breakdown video that I have on the channel right now. So, I am excited to watch the rest of this, but in the meantime, thank y'all for watching this breakdown. If you enjoyed it, make sure you're hitting that thumbs up, sharing this video, leaving your thoughts in the comments, and if you haven't already, consider subscribing to the channel and hitting that notification bell. You all are awesome. Hope you're staying safe. As you all can see on the screen now, come and join the community. Check out that video I was talking about breaking down the series and the ending. Check out my other breakdowns for this year. We'll catch you all on the next video.